Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call the Oklahoma Commission on Children and Youth meeting to order. It's Friday, November 19th, 2021 at 9 a.m. I'd like to welcome all the commissioners, staff, and guests here today. We'll do commissioner introductions here in just a moment, but I want to recognize and welcome our newest member of the commission, Interim Commissioner of Health, Keith Reed, for being here today. A few housekeeping items. I want to remind commissioners attending virtually to please keep your camera on through the duration of the meeting. We kindly ask guests to please keep your video off except when you are presenting. And if you're a member of the media, would like to speak with a representative from OCCY, I'm going to ask Mr. Rob Agnew to put his contact information in the chat. All right, let's go through introductions, starting with commissioners. We'll start with the participants in the room, and then we'll go to the commissioners on Zoom. If you'd please introduce yourself and the role you serve on the commission. We'll start with Commissioner Schneider.
Perfect. I'm John Schneider. I'm the Executive Director at Youth and Family Services, and I'm here serving, appointed by the governor on behalf of the Oklahoma Association of Youth Services.
Melinda Front, State Agency Director for Department of Rehabilitation Services.
Rachel Holt, Executive Director for the Office of Juvenile Affairs.
Haley Kurth, I am representing PARB as a foster parent with an agency.
Jacqueline Aaron, I'm representing CASA. I'm the Executive Director for CASA of Western Oklahoma. I also coordinate our child protection team for Custer and Western County.
Keith Reed, Interim Commissioner for Oklahoma State Department of Health. Kevin Corbett, CEO of the Oklahoma Healthcare Authority.
Brad Wilson, I'm representing the Oklahoma Bar Association.
On Zoom, Commissioner Harrington, are you on?
I am, yeah. This is Commissioner Harrington. I am a Vice President of Programs for Surplus Care, and I represent residential and child placing agencies.
Thank you. Commissioner Myers?
Good morning. My name is Brenda Myers. I'm the Director of the Comanche County Juvenile Bureau and the Director of the Comanche County Juvenile Detention Center. And I am representing the Metropolitan Juvenile Bureaus.
Is Judge Warren on?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good morning. Mike Warren, I represent the Supreme Court.
Do we have any other commissioners on Zoom? And I'm Lindsay Laird, and I work for the Arnall Family Foundation. I'm appointed by Senate Pro Tem Greg Treat as a member with an interest in improving child serving systems who is not employed by a state agency or private organization that receives state funds. Ms. Jett, do we have quorum?
Yes, we do.
All right, we'll continue with introductions. Ms. Balzer, are you on? If you are, we are not hearing you.
Give me just a moment. I'll see what I can't find out.
Mr. Whittyfield. Okay. All right, we will continue on to introduction of guests and staff. Mr. Whittyfield, I know you're trying to identify if Ms. Balzer's on. Would you mind starting with introductions of guests and staff?
Absolutely. I'll start with myself. I'm Jimmy Whittyfield Jr. I am with the Oklahoma Commission on Children and Youth, Program Manager for the Freestanding Multidisciplinary Teams Department. I have one staff member with me today, Michaela Pittman, who is new and joining us. If you'd wave, please, Michaela. Thanks. Looking through, if we could have the Child Death Review Board Program Manager do introduction and introduce your staff, that'd be great.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Lisa Rhodes. I'm the Program Manager for the Oklahoma Child Death Review Board. My staff is Joseph McGrath and Liz Kopp.
And Liz, if you please wave, everyone can see you. Make sure you're highlighted. Excellent. And is Joseph on? Okay, just wanted to make sure he had an opportunity to say hello. Go ahead.
I was just saying thank you.
Let's see, I'm looking through our list. If we could have Danielle Dill, if you'd introduce yourself and your staff that are present.
Hi, I'm Danielle Dill, and I serve as the Program Manager for the Office of Planning and Coordination with the Oklahoma Commission on Children and Youth. And I believe I have Nicole George with the Office of Planning and Coordination and Ellen Lorenz with us today.
And I think you also have the Parent Partnership Board Coordinator.
Oh, yes, Adrian Elder, I'm so sorry. Adrian should be with us as well today.
Morning.
Thank you. Let's see if we could go to the Post Adjudication Review Board.
I am Keith Pearl. I'm the program manager for the Post Adjudication Review Boards. And Jimmy, I don't think Christina's on. So
Great.
I'm in
Thanks for
today
being
for Carter.
Office of Juvenile System Oversight. Tina, if you would please introduce yourself, and looks like you have at least one staff member here.
I'm Tina Pendergraph. I am a supervisor with the Office of Juvenile System Oversight. And I believe I may have Matt Sproul or either Regina James. I'm not sure. I can't see.
It looks like you have Regina James here with you today.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then it looks like we have administrative staff. If we could start with our executive assistant, and then I can go through who else is here on Zoom.
Executive assistant.
That's you, Amanda.
I'm Amanda Jett. I am the assistant to Annette Jacoby with the Oklahoma Commission on Children and Youth. Sorry.
All right.
We have our office coordinator.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
Mr. Whitterfield, I think she's maybe in transit between offices.
Okay. Thank you. And it looks like, just really quick, Sandra Balzer was able to join by audio.
Enter your participant ID followed by pound. Otherwise, just press pound to continue.
Sandra, we're able,
Please
or
enter the
Sandra, I'm sorry, we're able to
passcode
hear you.
Followed by pound. You are in the meeting now. There are more than 20 participants in the meeting. This meeting is being recorded. You are muted. You can mute or unmute yourself.
All right. Ms. Balzer is our Assistant Attorney General working with OCCY. We're glad you're here.
And Ms. Balzer, have you joined us by audio? I'm asking her to unmute again. We'll move on. So we have Chara Taylor has joined. She's the office coordinator for OCCY. I believe I've gotten all the OCCY people. And I'm sorry, our public information officer, if you'd please introduce yourself. I'm sorry.
I'm Rob Agnew. I'm the Public Information Officer for OCCY. If you need to find my contact information, you're welcome to visit oklahoma.gov/OCCY and just click on Contact Us. Thanks so much.
Are there any other staff from the Oklahoma Commission on Children and Youth that have not yet done an introduction or been introduced?
Jimmy, I'm here as well. My name is Brittany Hunt Jassy. I serve as the legislative liaison for OCCY and will be speaking with you a little bit later.
Thank you for joining us from across the pond. Excellent. Anyone else?
Director Jacoby. Oh, and Assistant
Mark
Director.
James, Assistant Director with OCCY. Good to see you all.
Annette Jacoby.
My name is Edie Youngblood, and I am an intern student with UCO. I work full-time for the Oklahoma Department of Corrections. And thank you for allowing me to be in your meeting.
Chairperson Laird, I believe that is it for OCCY staff.
Are there any guests that we need to introduce at this point?
Yes, there are. Let me go through the list really quick. I'll say the person's first name and just have, please ask you to introduce yourself by full name, your agency. We'll start with Brandy.
I'm Brandy Bame. I am with OMES ABS, and I am the financial manager for OCCY.
Thank you. Constanzia.
Good morning. My name is Constancia Nitsa, and I serve as Chief of Staff to Director Holt at the Office of Juvenile Affairs.
Excellent. Good to see you again. Is it Delina?
Yes.
Delina
And-
Sullivan, and I am on the Parent Partnership Board, and I work for the Department of Rehabilitation.
Thank you. And I'm remembering now, we're going to have Parent Partnership Board members introduce themselves during their item on the agenda, just so we don't have to do double introductions. And so I apologize for not catching that before now. Jill?
Good morning, Jill Geiger with Jill Geiger Consulting. Glad to be here today.
Thank you. Shamika?
Good morning. I'm Shamika Williams. I'm the Director of Children's Services at the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. Thank you.
Wanda?
I'm Wanda Felty, a former commissioner, and I work at the Center for Learning and Leadership, which is Oklahoma's University Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you all. Is there anyone that is a guest that has not yet been recognized? Terrific. Chairperson Laird?
Thank you, Mr. Whitfield, for facilitating that. All right, we'll move on to public comment. Let's see here. Just a friendly reminder, you have 3 minutes, and we'll start with Mr. Joe Dorman with OCCY.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you again for your service. Commissioner, and side note, we have chili saved for you. We had our chili cook-off a couple of weeks ago to raise awareness about some of the things that are going on. It was tied in with Fall Forum, and it was a great success. And it certainly was a great opportunity to visit with some of those advocates out there who have an interest in the issues that we're working on together as agencies. The culmination of that conference led to this. It's our 2022 legislative agenda. I'm going to share this with each of the commissioners as soon as we put the finishing touches on it. Our board voted on that yesterday to finalize it. It's going to tie in with the mission. Many of you are agency directors or what you're working on, trying to work together to raise awareness and encourage the legislature to move forward with hopefully some programs and funding that will make lives much better for children in Oklahoma. The legislature is currently in session, therefore so is my ulcer. So I'm not sure if I will stay for the entire meeting, but want to thank you for your service. And for those of you that had a part in this, either sending employees or attending yourself, thank you very much. I think we have a very good legislative agenda for next year and looking forward to pushing it forward.
Thank you, Mr. Dorman. Next, we have Ms. Carrie Williams with the Oklahoma Partnership for School Readiness.
You might want to come over here because that camera's the only one that's working. Sorry.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you so much for having me today. For those of you I have not had the opportunity to meet yet, I'm Carrie Williams. I'm the new Executive Director for the Oklahoma Partnership for School Readiness. It took over just a few months ago, and one of our very first assignments at OPSR after my taking over was to draft and submit our annual report to the governor. So OPSR is the designated Early Childhood Advisory Council for the governor and the legislature. And one of our mandated requirements is to draft and complete this annual report every year. It talks about the preparedness of children when they enter school, about the state of early childhood programming in general as a whole across Oklahoma. And 3rd and 4th grade reading levels, we really work with across agencies to pull information together into one comprehensive report that gives the landscape annually of early childhood programs in Oklahoma. So you all had a copy of this in your chair this morning when you got here. I think our team, although very young and new, did a beautiful job on this report, and we're really proud of the finished product. If you have any questions at all, you can reach me at OPSR, and I'll leave some business cards here that have my cell phone, email address, and all of that. But thank you all for having me today, and we really look forward to any feedback that you have. You can also know that the home visiting report is coming up very, very soon as well from OPSR. So we'll give a full landscape of home visiting programs in the state. That's due December the 1st. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Do we have anybody else sign up for public comment? No. Okay, that concludes public comment. We'll move on to agenda item number 3. The presentation, discussion, approval of finance report. Ms. Fame, I understand you will be presenting the finance report.
Yes, I will.
Commissioners, you have a copy of the financials in your packet.
Okay, before I start, I wanted to let everyone know that while this report, the first report is for October of 21, the numbers are going to be a little bit different than what Mark is about to present after me because we found that the system is not taking the snapshot like we thought. And so there are transactions that happened after October 31st represented in the report that I'm about to present. For the annual budget, we have $5,232,322. To date, as of October 31st, we had spent $762,458.11. We've encumbered $648,810.20, which is a total variance of $3,321,079.69. As of October 31st, we had $733,820.90 in our 911 FY21 appropriations cash, and then we had $160,160.28 available in our FY22 appropriations cash. And in our 200 revolving fund, we had $784,443.58 as of October 31st. In the
Ms. Fame?
next, yes,
Do you mind letting us know which page you're
I
referring
am
to?
so sorry. The first page was the BTA, which had all the budget that I was referencing. The second page had the cash balances. And there is no cash balance in the 210 fund, which is on the third page, should be the third page of the packet.
Thank you.
Okay. Then on the fourth page, there's no revenue in that fund that has come in FY22. The fifth page, we've received $836,472 in FY22 appropriations. The sixth page, we have not let me see. I think we've only received 33,000 in revenues to date in the 200 fund. And we haven't received any revenues on the sixth page for the 210 fund. And then on the seventh page, we had $13,250.68 in our clearing account that would be transferred to the revolving fund. And that should be it.
Ms. Fame, this is class 79901, correct?
Yes, 79901. Yes, sorry.
You can continue. Our page numbers are just a little off here, so I'm
Oh,
trying to
okay.
turn- no problem.
That should be it as far as revenues. After the 791 should be the last of it.
You mentioned some transfers that would not align with Assistant Director James's presentation. Could you point those out that you are referring to?
It's not transfers, the budget amount has changed since October 31st because we received additional revenues or expected revenues in the revolving funds. So we had to increase the budget.
Okay.
And then we had found some budget errors that were corrected after October 31st that are also reflected in that $5,232,322. And so
You have the,
I'm sorry.
go ahead. You have the, go ahead, please.
His number is going to be lower than that. It should be. I'm sorry, I forgot to pull up that report. Let me pull it up real quick. The actual ending balance of the budget as of October 31st was $5,119,917.
Do you have the additional revenue that was added to the revolving fund?
It's in the CAMDA fund. There was more received, there's more received than we had projected, more to be received than we had projected. And then there was a new grant that is being received from Department of Health, I believe, that we had included budget for that as well. And
Thank
I
you, Ms.
believe
Bailey.
it was- Thank you.
Does any other commissioners have any questions?
I just asked one question. The year-to-date actuals are substantially lower than year-to-date budget. Is that due just to timing or?
Mark might want to answer that, but yes, part of it is timing because we have, you want to answer that because you're going to go over that in a minute, but
We wait then.
It's a fair-
Already covered.
okay, okay.
Any other questions on the financials? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Take the vote. Secretary Corbett,
Yes.
Commissioner Aaron,
Yes.
Director Prince,
Yes.
Interim Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Director Holt,
Yes.
Commissioner Kurth,
Yes.
Commissioner Laird, yes. Commissioner Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Judge Warren, can we mute? Oh, there we go. Judge Warren,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
All right. Financial report is approved. Our next agenda item is the presentation from Assistant Director James on the state fiscal year 2023 proposed budget requests.
Good morning. I have a PowerPoint that I'm going to run through real quickly. Let me share my screen. As soon as I can find the PowerPoint. Well, I apologize. I had it pulled up ready to go and.
Here it comes.
No, that is the wrong screen.
Mark, we're seeing an email.
Yes, that's the wrong thing. Seen all kinds of screens I've not seen before. Well, Mr. Woodfield, would you mind pulling up my presentation
Absolutely.
to share myself?
Give me just a moment.
So as he's pulling it up, some of the questions that we had were asked, should be able to address. Then I can clarify that some others hopefully as well. But as he's pulling that PowerPoint up, you may recall at our September 21st commission meeting, we had prepared a budget to submit prior to our October 1st deadline for our state annual budget request. We ultimately ended up not presenting that proposal. We had some questions from some of the commissioners beforehand that we were trying to resolve regarding available cash balances and then some various issues. And so we thought we understood what those questions were, but then we met with OMS just prior to that meeting. And we have this revolving fund that Mr. Bain pointed out earlier is our 200 account. At that point, we had about $875,000 cash available in that account. We were misunderstood that, thinking that money was not budgeted. And that's what we came to the meeting on September 21st, believing that money had not been budgeted. And so that's why we retracted our request. We were originally going to request $406,000 in addition to our current appropriations. But because of that information, we decided, well, we're not going to ask for more money since obviously we have cash here available that appears not to be spent. So it wouldn't be wise to pursue that. So we retracted our presentation and therefore did not submit a request proposal. And because of that, we also didn't even present to you a request to approve a standing flat budget request. Unfortunately, Ms. Superintendent Hoffmeister actually did point that question out, but I wasn't tracking with her well enough to realize that we needed to approve that. So October 1st, we submitted a contingent budget to OMES for a flat budget of $2.5 million in appropriations, contingent upon us coming back to the commissioners today to approve this flat budget. So I'm just giving you a little background of how we're here today. So that occurred. We submitted our information both to the OMES and to the legislature. Sometime later, we got responded back from House staff verifying that we're not actually asking for additional funds. Apparently, that's pretty uncommon for an agency not to be asking for additional funds. And so I gave this scenario that yes, we intended to, because of some misunderstandings and miscommunication, we ultimately did not. Well, the House staff said, well, you know, if you really want to pursue this, it's not too late. We can still go down this path. So we visited with staff, both the House and the Senate, and we actually met with Representative Lawson and discussed our situation, and ultimately determined that we want to go ahead and move forward with a budget request in addition to our current appropriation amount.
I'm just gonna throw something in, it's kind of key. That money was budgeted. So we got incorrect information. And so that when we retracted it, we thought we had a stockpile that we did not know about and had not budgeted for. That was incorrect. And we learned that after the commission meeting. And so what he's going to show you today is a breakout so you can see where the money is and how it's kind of parsed out. So we would just want to be very clear. So House staff was surprised when we didn't put in a request and we didn't know that we could still do that. So I'm sorry, I just wanted to throw that in because that's kind of key.
That's an important part, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that $875,000 that we discussed was fully budgeted and accounted for in the current fiscal year. So it was not money that we were going to be able to use for additional activities and work. So Mr. Woodfield, can you move to slide 2? So this is just a quick picture of what our budget was for October 31st. As you can see, appropriations is about half of our entire budget. So there's some issues, and Ms. Bain pointed out there were some budgeting errors that we're correcting. One of those is reflected here. We have $500,000 listed in carryover. That same $500,000 on October 31st was also reported in our revolving fund. So on October 31st, that 1.366 should be $500,000 less. But there have been some additional changes that I'll cover in a minute that will bring that back up slightly. But as of that picture, about $500,000 is accounted for twice in this pie chart. But that is our entire budget as of October 31st, which was $5.1 million. And again, appropriations is right at half of that amount.
And what does the CAMTA stand for?
Child Abuse Multidisciplinary Team account. I'm going to go a breakdown of all four of these categories for the next few slides. So I'm going to do a breakdown of this. So we'll, if you have more questions specifically about each one of those, we'll go over it. Next slide, please, Jimmy. So this is the appropriation amount. So we get $2.5 million. And as you can see, well, a little bit difficult to see on that PowerPoint, but 88% of that amount goes towards personnel. So all of our full-time employees are paid out of appropriations. So that's all, salaries, benefits, and everything. Then the remaining 12%, we're able to utilize on some of our necessary overhead costs. Our costs to OMES, our costs to the Attorney General's office, rent, utilities. So the 12% of our appropriations helps us cover some of our additional appropriations. So, I'm sorry, overhead costs just to run business, to run an organization. But again, so the largest portion of that appropriations does go straight to our personnel costs.
Is all professional services OMES, or are there other professional service fees in there?
In this particular,
yeah, it should not all be OMES.
Could you repeat that, please?
I said, it's not OMES, there's also other contracts in that cost.
Thank you.
Mr. Whitfield, can you go to slide 2 or 3? So this next slide, this is the revolving account, our 200 funds. This is what we talked about earlier. So we actually have budgeted 1.366 in there for this current year. This is where we had that $500,000 that we are now moving out and putting back into our carryover account, which is our 200. I'm sorry, our 191.
I wouldn't even say we're moving it. It's there.
It is there.
We're
It's already
just,
budgeted.
it's double booked. And so it's coming out of this because it's not appropriate here.
Right. So as Ms. Bain pointed out, we've had to make some changes. One thing, is our CAMTA amount, which I'll cover in a couple of other slides. We got more money than we anticipate coming in, so we're going to revise this amount. But we also, thankfully, are a partnership with the Department of Health. So they're going to provide $235,000 to us to support our parent partnership project and all the work for our parents, which we'll talk about later this morning as well. So while we're reducing $500,000 from this revolving fund, we are increasing it by $235,000 plus a little bit more because of additional revenues that we know they're going to be coming through from CAMTA. But of this amount, you can see professional services is the majority use of this. So we use our professional services contracts to carry out many of the tasks, responsibilities that we're charged to do as an agency. So we don't have the manpower to do it ourselves. One of those, a few of those are our chief child abuse medical examiner, Dr. Stockett. We have a contract with her and an assistant chief to carry out the work and duties of that we're statutorily obligated to carry out there. We have a contract with Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Oklahoma to carry out our Oklahoma Mentoring for Children of Incarcerated Parents program. We contract for juvenile competency evaluations. We have 5 evaluators that we do those evaluations for the courts statewide. We have a contract with Tulsa County to carry out their HARB coordinating services. So those are just a list of very numerous contracts that we have in place to carry out many of the projects that we're asked to do as an agency. And those are come out of this revolving fund. Jimmy, next slide.
Can I point one thing? I just want to make sure. I think the impression is that the revolving funds have not been budgeted. They're budgeted and they're used. And so that's kind of why we wanted to show this picture, because if you're looking at the breakdown and you're thinking about revolving funds in a traditional way, you're like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money, but it's budgeted and it's part of our core. So we just wanted to point that out.
Well, and I will also point out where we get that revolving fund. Largely our revolving fund comes from almost all reimbursements. So we have to pay for those services up front each year. We get reimbursed for Title 40 funds for the work largely that our Office of Juvenile System Oversight does. We get reimbursed some for our PAR program and a little bit from our multidisciplinary team project. But we have to pay for all those expenses up front, and then we get reimbursed. And now our new partnership with the Health Department is similar. We have to pay for those costs up front this coming year, and then we'll get reimbursed.
Which answers part of your question, Secretary Corbett. It is a timing issue. So we have to have cash to do those activities. That will go down, and then you're going to see another big pot come back. And so depending on when you take this snapshot, it can look rather large.
Right. So it's going to ebb and flow throughout the year. So by the end of the year, this should be built back up as we get reimbursed. But that buildup is what we're going to need to count on for the cash on hand starting in fiscal year 23. So just FYI, that's how. So we get those 4E that are. We get a Children's Justice Act grant each year for Mr. Whitfield's work and training purposes. And then now the Health Department money that we will be getting all gets accounted for in our revolving fund. So this slide just is talking about our carryover. So on the budget page at the beginning, we had the $500,000 carved out for there. But we actually have, as of October 31st, $733,000 in cash in carryover. 500 of that is going towards that database project. So that leaves $233,820 that is available. As of October 31st, that money was budgeted in various other programs throughout the agency, but this is going to be part of our revision as well. I had mentioned earlier that we originally were going to request $406,000 for new funds. We're not going to ask for that much at this, present that to you today. We feel like we can use this $233,000 to accommodate some of those additional requests that we were considering. Next slide, please. So this is the account that you were asking about, Commissioner Laird. Each year, we statutorily receive money from the Child Abuse Multidisciplinary Team account that comes to us, and it's renamed the Child Abuse Multidisciplinary Team account. We receive these funds and we provide them to the 37 teams across the state. We are able to keep 5% of the total cost for our administrative support and work, but the rest of that is distributed to the rest of those teams. Well, we recently discovered that what we anticipated, which was $743,000, is actually significantly higher. The CAN amount was higher, plus DHS is going to provide an additional $75,000 from available captive funds. So what's the budget is actually going to be $891,000. So that's part of the revision that Ms. Bain was talking about, that we're going to make a part of the revisions. So we have 743 budgeted on the 31st. It is actually now going to be $891,000. A portion of that, we get 5%, and all the rest goes out to those teams. So we have no control or it simply is somewhat of a pass-through. It comes to us, and we have to, by statute, just provide those to those teams. So it's a large amount of money that sits in our budget that we have no connection with other than providing it to those teams throughout the state.
Do the MDT teams have a plan to spend that increase?
Probably not yet, because we just discovered it in the last month or so. Those amounts did not get finalized until October. So we've just discovered in the past few weeks what those are.
Okay.
Then we have to reach out to those teams. We have some members of the MDTs here, so.
So the original amount that you gave each team, that's because we are getting ready to vote on our budget. So it's going to be totally different.
It's gonna be more.
Well, I'm not sure when you get those amounts.
A month ago.
It may have been, it's probably within October is when those numbers were finalized, so you may have the correct amount. We'll have to communicate with Mr. Whitfield to verify. But we projected them out as an agency prior to July 1st, and this was our projected amount. But the real numbers came in, and it's going to be $191,000 that will be dispersed. So each team will be have to discuss, or Mr. Whitfield will be with each of you to determine the actual amount is.
So the additional money is coming from DHS, from whatever account?
From a federal fund.
The federal fund.
Captive.
How will you receive that? Will it come to you and be added to this, and you don't have to get reimbursed on it?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to be clarifying on that.
This is the one thing where we just get the money up front.
Okay.
Teams.
Can I just throw in a little something? I'm sorry, you're probably like, yeah, you just stand here. So these teams, the 37 teams, get roughly $25,000 for training, equipment, supplies, anything that helps them in child abuse and investigations. And that money, again, is not part of our flexible account. We can't do anything with it. But let's think about this. It comes in, I just lost my train of thought. Your point is well taken, Melinda. If you, or Commissioner Front, if you remember several years ago, we were trying to make this a reimbursable account, and these teams are professionals that are not an organization. They're individuals from different agencies that come together. They don't have money to front activities. So if they all want to go to a training, the problem was they were sitting there and saying, we don't have money to register. And so we changed it in statute so that they could have the money up front. Now, the problem is sometimes teams don't spend all their money, or maybe something goes a little south, and then we have to retrieve the money. And that's more difficult. And that's why we didn't want to do that in the beginning. But however, we recognized after So that's why you see this large sum sitting there, and then it goes out the door. And then we may have some of it come back at the end of the year.
Do you have an obligation to understand where the money goes or have some kind of reporting back to you?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Next slide, please, Mr. Whitfield. So that was just a quick overview of where we're at today. So this is actually what our request is coming to you. We have in appropriations, 2.5 million currently for this year. And we are asking for an additional $181,500 in addition to that amount. So our proposal to the commission is for us to revise our budget request for fiscal year 23 to $2,690,000 and 914. I'm sorry, $2,690,914. Next slide, please, Jimmy. So that new dollar amount is specifically for the Office of Juvenile System Oversight. We are charged with many tasks and responsibilities in various departments, but our OJSO has been significantly under-supported in many ways for quite some time. And here's a list of the statutory responsibilities that department has, and then some of the highlights from those statutes that we're expected to carry out. We have currently 7 staff who are actively working and involved in responding to complaints, doing facility oversight inspections, managing our foster care grievance system, now managing the new jail grievance system that was given to us November 1. And so our folks have been involved in the trenches doing all the daily work regarding those complaints. Over the many years, what we have lost is some of the coordinated effort within that agency. So it's hard for us to see a bigger picture of things. So they're so involved in just managing the cases. Even our supervisors we have in there, they carry caseloads themselves. So we feel that we need additional 2 staff to help us cover these critical tasks that are listed here, some of which we're just barely touching. We're just not giving them the attention and the effort that they need to have. So we feel that we need to, at this year point, ask for additional FTE to support that program. There have been some questions of why are we not using carryover money or the revolving funds for those amounts. One thing, the carryover we're not able to use from personnel. But the revolving fund, there's potential we could do that, but our revolving account is not stable. Since it's reimbursable, well, one thing, we're not guaranteed what amounts we're going to get each year. We project how much work we think we're going to get, for example, in 4E, and then project how much we hopefully will get reimbursed. There's no guarantee that what that projection would be. Plus, there's no guarantee that we'll get that each year. Our CJA application, we apply for a grant every year. We thankfully have been getting it each year, but there's no guarantee we'll get it year from year on. So we don't feel like it's responsible for us to put personnel on those revolving accounts. Therefore, we feel that appropriations is where we need to come from so that for our staff position, so that that's static, that's stable, we know that it's going to be there. So that's a brief overview of what our request is, $181,000. Jimmy, if you can go back to the request page, 3 slides. I just want to leave that up there so that for the commissioners to look at as one more, or not, maybe 2 more. Next.
Wrong way. They went the wrong way and you passed it.
Yeah, you go, I think it's the 3rd to the last slide. So I want the commissioners just to see what our request is. It's going to be $2,609,000. Yeah, yes. So that's what I'm presenting today, an overview of where we're at, where we've come from, and then what we're anticipating revising our request to OMSTB and to the legislature for what our request to be. We did meet with our finance committee, which is Director Front, Director Holt, and Commissioner Jonathan Hall. Went over this information with them and went through the numbers and helped them review it and look at it. And so at this point, our finance committee has reviewed this and they are in support of this recommendation that we're now presenting to you all for discussion and a vote on.
Any questions? I just want to acknowledge and thank Assistant Director James and Director Jacoby for your transparency through this process. I know it's been kind of start and stops and a lot of questions and some misinformation and misunderstanding. So thank you for your transparency through this process. I'm also hopeful that we are now on a path where we have a clear understanding of the budget and what is, revolving versus what is remaining. So look forward to smooth sailing from here on out. But I did want to acknowledge and thank you for your transparency and taking the time to walk us through this. All right, if there are no further questions, is there a motion to approve the budget request?
So moved.
Okay.
Let the judge have it.
Judge,
I'll second it.
and then Commissioner Wilson second. Thank you.
I always defer to this.
Secretary Corbett,
Yes.
Commissioner Aaron,
Yes.
Director Front.
Yes.
Interim Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Director Holt. Yes. Commissioner Kirk. Commissioner Laird.
Yes.
Commissioner Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Judge Warren,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item number 5, we have the proposed Board of Child Abuse Examiner rules. These rules have to be promulgated for vote among the commissioners. So we have Dr. Mary Stockett here to present, but first, Director Jacoby, do you want to say a few words to kind of set the stage?
Oh, come on now, come on now.
All right.
I just want to say we are so thankful and appreciative of all the time that Dr. Stockett dedicates to us. She is here one day a week, which is amazing for an active clinician. And she has really, along with the Office of Planning and Coordination, really reconstituted the Board of Child Abuse Examiners and is looking hard at developing a very robust system of examiners across the state. We have some, thanks to her, even before she was in this role, she was already doing the role. So we had to pick her up and pay her accordingly. So we're very, very thankful. And I just, you just have no idea how great it is to have this amount of time from an active physician. So I want to thank you for that.
Okay, so I don't know, well, first of all, I'm a child abuse pediatrician at OU Children's. I mean, that's kind of where I came from to be in these roles. I didn't just, kind of come in off the street. The Board of Child Abuse Examination, the kind of just a one sentence explanation of what the goals are is simply to have medical providers around the state to do medical evaluation with the goal of determining did maltreatment occur. And so that's the goal. So it's a little different than what their practice ordinarily is. And so because of that, we need to train them to do that. And we need to recognize that they're trained and they've met some qualifications. And so that's what these rules are about. The statute says that the board should prepare the rules. And we met in October to finalize the preparation of the rules, and the Board of Child Abuse Examination voted to approve them. But it's actually the commission that has to go forward. So we need your approval before we can do anything else. So you all have the rules. They're really fairly simple and basically establish the requirements to be one of these child abuse examiners. So I'm here to answer any questions about that and encourage you to approve them, I guess.
Thank you, Dr. Stockett. Do we have any questions on the rules?
I guess I'll ask, these are new rules and these weren't in existence previously. So the Board of Child Abuse Examinations making the recommendations that this board approve these. Is that what Mary does?
This will be a public hearing on this.
We'll go through the whole entire process.
Is there a motion to approve the proposed rules?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. We'll take the vote.
Secretary Corbett,
Yes.
Commissioner Aaron,
Yes.
Director Front. Yes. Interim Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Director Holt,
Yes.
Commissioner Kurth,
Yes.
Commissioner Laird,
Yes.
Commissioner Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Judge Warren,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Dr.
We
Stockett.
appreciate it.
Appreciate your work. We have Mr. Keith Kirtle, the OCCY Program Manager, to present the Post Adjudication Review Board recommendations.
Good morning, everybody. Just a quick reminder of what PARB is. This program's been a part of the commission since the early 90s. Our mission is to support, protect, and monitor the deprived court system. Well, in juvenile court system, we do look at some delinquent cases as well, but mainly deprived court cases. And we do this through, right now we have about 300 volunteers across the state. And Jimmy, would you pull up the slides for me in the?
Working on it now.
Thank you. So we do this, we have, and I mean, I want you to understand the significance of this. I mean, we have 2.5 staff and we have over 300 volunteers. So that's a volunteer machine that takes a lot to keep going. And we have people that have been doing it for a long, long time. And we're constantly looking for new folks all the time. We have right now about 42 separate boards, and they meet typically on a monthly basis to review these cases and make recommendations to the judge. And I wanted to, say a shout out and thank you to Commissioner Kurth and Wilson and Harrington. During our summer stop tours, they got to go out and help us promote and dig up the dirt a little bit. And we could probably use 600 volunteers, and we're really only in about half of the counties we need to be. But every year, part of our statute is to make a recommendation to the commission through our state board. We do have a state board as well. It's made up of 23 members, includes 4 judges, also a representative from DHS, OJA, Foster Care and Adoptive Association, plus foster parents like Dr. Kurth, and local PARB member volunteers as well. So this is kind of our brochure. So this is kind of a plug. If you want to help promote PARB, we have the group shot, the female group and the male group. But Rob did a good job with that. So if you go ahead and go to the next one, Jimmy, please. So after a lot of deliberation with our state PARB group, and they meet about 4 times a year, they've finally settled on this one issue to eliminate the right to request a jury trial and the termination of parental rights procedures. Just to give you a little history, a work group of the state PARB started meeting in 2020 to look at this issue. About the same time, Judge Warren and Judge Versteg, who is involved in our state PARB as well, started a jury trial subcommittee. The Juvenile Justice Oversight and Advisory Committee started looking at that as well. And I think, Director Jacoby, you handed out the report earlier. I saw that.
We've sent it electronically and there's a paper copy for you as well.
So they really dug into it. We started to look into it and actually kind of deferred to this committee. But kind of in summary where that came from. So currently the Oklahoma Supreme Court recognizes a right to trial by jury in the termination of parental rights procedures. Texas, Oklahoma, and Wyoming are the only states that allow the unrestricted use of juries when terminating parental rights. Some concerns around this, and obviously one of the missions of the PARB boards and DHS and others and judges too, is to get to permanency as appropriately and as quickly as possible. And so the argument here is jury trials do slow that down. The requirement to hold jury trials typically delays termination and therefore the resolution of the case. In rural districts, they only have so many jury trials, and a lot of those go to criminal proceedings. In a lot of areas, there's limited experienced prosecutors and attorneys to handle these cases. It's been reported in the report, and they actually share the actual numbers. But in many areas, including the urban areas, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Comanche, and Cleveland counties, there's lots of cases pending trial. In a bench trial, the judge has to demonstrate their decision-making. That's my understanding from what I've read in that report, is that's not necessarily the case for the jury trial. So, I mean, I'm giving you a very short synopsis of some of the highlighted issues we've looked at for a long time. But therefore, we have some really experienced folks on our state PARB, not only the judges, but foster parents and others. Their recommendation after several meetings is to move this recommendation forward. So there you go.
Thank you, Mr. Pirtle. I would love to hear from Judge Warren, who chaired the report that you have in front of you. Judge Warren, would you mind sharing some thoughts on the report and the work that you've done in this space.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. There had been some complaints coming in that to the legislators about jury trials not moving forward. And so Chief Justice Gurich, former Chief Justice Gurich, asked us, and she asked me to comprise a committee or put together a committee to study this and find out if it was COVID, if there were other problems. And so we started looking at the situation. And as we dug into it, we started finding out things that Oklahoma does that very few other states do. And you mentioned Texas as being one of the states that allows a jury trial. And something that you may not be aware of is that the state constitution of Texas allows a jury trial in any type of proceeding. So if you're going through a divorce, or if your friend is going through a divorce, well, they've got a right to have a jury trial in that divorce proceeding. If they're going through a custody proceeding, they have a right to have a jury determine which parent gets custody. And so it's built into their constitution. In Oklahoma, a statute came out in, I believe it was 1987, and or thereabouts. And the legislature was going to eliminate the jury trial. And a case came up, and Justice Carter wrote the opinion. It was a 5-4 decision. And she wrote that due process in the state of Oklahoma required a jury trial. And so there's been many discussions about that and whether or not that's the case. The U.S. Supreme Court came out after that, I believe it was in 1993, and determined that due process does not require a jury trial in a termination hearing in any state. But we still have the case law from 1987 that requires the right to a jury trial. Now then, if 47 other states and the District of Columbia, we discovered, are not using jury trials, the two of those states allow a jury trial in an appeal. And I've got it in the report listed which two those are. And I believe it's maybe Wisconsin and Virginia. I'm not positive of my memory there. So after looking at this, we determined that yes, indeed, we are bogged down. Yes, indeed, we do need to have more jury trials. And other things, when a district attorney in a rural area starts preparing a jury docket, they announce that they have a certain number of cases ready, and that's about all that they can handle. So the children's cases get put on the back burner sometimes, and they'll do some criminal cases, and they may do one children's case, and then the rest of them get put off till the next jury docket. And so that's what's been happening. And COVID, we had the problem with getting these matters to jury before COVID came along. COVID has made it a little bit worse, but it wasn't really the factor that slowed us down. So that's what we've come up with. And based upon what we're seeing the other states doing, a note here, Arizona was not using a jury trial. And so they decided to utilize an experiment. And they came up with a statute that was adopted by the state. And it said that they were going to have jury trials on their child termination proceedings. And I think it lasted about 2 years before the legislature threw up their hands and said, this is ridiculous. And they repealed the statutes. So they're back to non-jury trials. And you were correct, sir, in mentioning about the requirements. If a judge conducts the trial, he's required to make specific findings for the termination. And if a jury of 6 determines that the rights of the parents should be terminated, there's a little checkbox that says that they determine that the rights should be terminated, but they are not required to make the specific findings. Those findings remain inside the jury room, and they remain secret. So unless they wish to reveal them afterward. So personally, I'm in favor of, after all of this study, I'm in favor of eliminating the jury trial. But we still have people, and we still have some judges, we still have some justices that don't want to see it go. And I'm in favor of weighing the best interests of the child up against the rights of the parents to have their children. And say, you know, there's a point in time when the rights of the child need to be weighed heavily, because keeping the child out of permanency, keeping the child bouncing around from foster home to foster home, getting all of their belongings thrown in a trash bag to go with them to the next foster home, that damages them. And it doesn't just damage them for a few days or a few months, it damages them for the rest of their life. And we've got the science now to prove that. So that's what our report says. And I submitted it to the Supreme Court pursuant to instructions from Justice Gurich, and they kept it a long time. And then they sent it back to me and they said, we would like you to make a few edits. And it wasn't deleting any information. It was just making some things a little bit more clear. And so I did that, resubmitted it, and they have said now that they approve you guys getting to be able to see what's in the report that we prepared for the Supreme Court. However, they're not adopting the report, and they're not saying going against the report. They're waiting for the right thing to come along where they can make a decision with the 9 and decide whether or not they want to continue with a finding that due process requires a jury trial or not. And it might be that the legislature can help this situation by being very specific wording wise in their legislation in the future.
Thank you, Judge Warren. I thought the report was very well done and informative. I think what stood out to me was the number of cases that are pending, and especially some of our urban communities. So any other comments or questions from the commission? I know we have a lot of people who are involved in this and would love to hear.
Yeah.
Commissioner Snyder?
Judge, great report. I really enjoyed that. Do we know if Director Brown, does he have an opinion on this? Has he offered any kind of?
We did discuss.
You would have to ask him. I don't know.
It was discussed at a recent cabinet meeting, and I think they're reserving judgment at the moment. But so
Curious.
I think that this has been brought before the legislature in the past and has been unpopular, eliminating jury trials. And they recognize that and know that that would be a difficult battle.
Commissioner Aaron?
I've sat through 18 years with CASA and termination trials. And Judge Versteeg is one of our judges, and I have spoken to him with about this issue. And, it is very, very frustrating when we wait and wait and wait for a trial. And then we have 6 people that are mostly mom and dads We've had kiddos getting on the stand telling about their sexual abuse, physical abuse. Mom didn't protect, and they still come back, don't terminate. And that doesn't mean that they automatically get to go get their kids and go on. That means that we start all over with a brand new ISP for them to start working on, which in 18 years, none of my CASA cases that were not terminated. Just the ones we've had in our 5 counties did not work their plan later. And so then it just delayed it. They say they get 90 days, but it's not 90 days. We don't know that. And so it's just delaying the permanency that Judge Warren and the committee's talking about for these kids. And it's just basically re-traumatizing them, in my opinion. So I'm super excited to see this brought up. I'll be following it just like everyone else. So thank you, Judge Warren.
You're very welcome. If you have ever sat in on an adoption proceeding, which I have done all kinds of adoption proceedings, and some of these are with the children whose parents' rights have been terminated, and the adoptive parents are with them in there, and they are so excited to be able to have a place to call home. And it's great. It's my favorite thing to do.
And Judge Warren, thank you so much. This is Commissioner Kurt. I am a foster parent. I'm an adoptive parent, but I've also been a witness on the stand in a jury trial. And I think the most important thing for me to say to a group is that we're not giving up on the parents. So this is not a 90 days and we're getting a trial. And if we eliminate this, those parents aren't getting a chance. Those parents whom I love, and I've said, I'm friends with those parents. I'm pro-birth parents. They get the time and we have mediation and it goes years and years and years. And that's not fair to the children. So this, I'm fully supportive of this. In eliminating this, it's not giving up on the parents or changing their process. They still get time to work their plan. They still get chances for mediation, and those judges will still have that ultimate decision on finding if the child's able to return home.
Thank you, Dr. Kurth. Yes, Commissioner Wilson.
Judge, this is Brad Wilson. I was just wanting to say, when I read the report, I think you guys hit the nail on the head on delayed permanency for the children. In my practice in Carter County, probably the first 10 years I represented deprived children in probably 30 or 40 cases. And the delayed permanency drags through, and it's a common theme. And you'll see parents, and I know you've seen this on the bench, you'll see parents do just enough in working their plan not to reach that termination threshold. And it's never 90 days, it's years. And I'd be interested to follow this and see how, the right to jury trial may change. And I was really fascinated to see that we were one of only a few states that still do it. I think the assumption was it was almost universal. But anything we could do to increase the speed of the resolution of these cases would be a huge win for the children. So thank you for your work. I appreciate you.
You're very welcome.
Director Holt.
Yes, thank you, Judge Warren and Keith, for your work on this. I'm just going to speak as a former assistant district attorney in Oklahoma County juvenile. I did the delinquents, but I second chaired, I think, 2 or 3 deprived jury trials. In my experience in Oklahoma County, 5 years ago now, they had 26 jury trials a year. Every week, those deprived attorneys had 4 to 5 jury trials set. And Monday morning did not know what was going till maybe Monday afternoon, started at Tuesday morning, so they can only go on 1. So everything else gets moved now months out because every week is full of 4 or 5 trials. So it delays permanency for all of those children. As the DAs are scrambling to get the CASA on board and the medical doctor subpoenaed and all the experts that they need subpoenaed for a jury trial to get those jurors, because you need to do it all in those 3 to 4 days or whatever it is. just while the DA is also presenting witnesses during a jury trial. And then the current way that appeals are, it's pretty much an automatic appeal, which then usually takes about a year or more. So even the jury trial, if it does end in termination, there's still almost always a appeal, and then those results almost always take about a year. So even that, in my experience in Oklahoma County, and then of course in rural counties where there are less jury trials, those jury trials, the preference is to go, of course, with criminal cases, especially that are in jail. So those cases get moved also. I attended an interim study by Senator Merrick. I think it was on foster parents, right? But this really came up in there, and foster parents were really expressing their concerns about the length of time. Now, cases that DAs decide are going to termination, those parents have had the time. Like as mentioned, they've had the time to put in the effort. I mean, these are the cases that a district attorney feels they are ready, that, for a district attorney to say, I'm going, they need the child's attorney on board, they need the CASA on board, they need, the medical doctor on board, they need a lot of people on board to move forward. And so I have always, as an observer, been interested in this issue. And so I think the people that contributed to this report and Judge Warren, as a commissioner, I think, so you were asking us to, and I guess I'm asking about
approving the recommendation put forth by PARB at this point, and then when Ms. Brittany Hunt Jassy presents possible legislation, you will see this again here in just a moment. So this at this point is just to approve the recommendation put forth by PARB.
to eliminate jury trials. And so knowing about the legislative process, obviously there would need to be other partners on board with that. And if major partners like DHS or DAC or the judiciary ultimately are not fully on board, then there will need to be amendments and compromises and collaboration.
I want to acknowledge Commissioner Harrington has also joined us. Glad you're here. Do you have any comments or?
Oh,
anything you'd like to
I'm
add to the discussion?
100% in agreement with this as a foster parent too. Many of my cases, and I am like Dr. Kurth, that 100% for the bio parents and supportive of the bio parents. And I work for Circle of Care, which is the largest foster care agency in Oklahoma. And I'm telling you, we have cases, kids in care that 5 years plus. And so we are not seeing timely permanency. And it is a lot of rural counties as well that it just gets pushed back because they're only twice a year. COVID has impacted that some, but it was prior to COVID as well. So, I absolutely think it's in the best interest of the kid because the parents do have adequate time.
It's
to
a
do what they
trickle
need to
down
do.
effect, I think. I'm sorry, but like if kids are in custody, years and years, well, then that doesn't, with no permanency achieved for that long a time, that's taking up spots for foster homes, it's taking up spots for CASA volunteers. I mean, it is a trickle down effect, and it just accentuates a lot of our other deficits and needs in our system, so.
Well, and to go off of that, you go back to foster parents that foster with the goal of reunification, and you have a kid in their home as a foster parent for 5+ years when their intent is not to adopt, but they've had that kid for 5 years. Then what? You know what I mean? So then what we've seen is those kids then get moved to a pre-adoptive placement, but they may be 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. And then those kids go to a pre-adoptive home, they disrupt placement because they want to go back home to the foster home that they identify as home, but those foster parents love those kids, but their goal is to continue to foster, not to adopt. And so then, then those kids are old enough that those kids are unfortunately not, they may have behaviors and they then get labeled and they get moved and then they age out of the system because they never get permanency. So.
Yeah.
Well said.
Any other comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion
Motion is.
I know.
Yes. Support.
Just a-
Commissioner, oh,
The question is the approval by the commission to be able to move forward with this as legislative request? Is that, what's the purpose of the approval?
Right, so I think we're first looking for a recommendation or approval of the recommendation from State Park, just as a recommendation, and then we will ask for it in concept to be a recommendation for a legislative request in Brittany's report.
This motion is to approve the recommendation by State Farm to eliminate jury trial for termination of parents.
so Commissioner Schneider made the motion, Commissioner Aaron seconded. Any final discussion? All right, we'll take the vote. Secretary Corbin.
Abstain?
Commissioner Aaron,
Yes.
Director Brent,
Yes.
Interim Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Director Holt. Yes. Commissioner Harrington.
Yes.
Commissioner Kurth,
Yes.
Commissioner Laird,
Abstain.
Commissioner Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Judge Warren,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson,
Abstain.
Motion passes. Thank you all. Thank you for the discussion. Okay, our next two agenda items are the review and approval of minutes. So we have the June 25th regular commission meeting. We'll start there. We just passed around at the beginning of the meeting an updated version. So if you wouldn't mind taking a look at this version that was just passed out at the beginning of the meeting. And let us know if you have any edits or amendments. Oh, I will point out what changed. So it was on page 2, there were some comments that had, that were left over.
Annette's comments were, there are two comments in Mr. James's report.
Oh, on the increase of funds for PARB, I think, and
So those were my notes to someone that got left in the permanent in the version.
parentheses, I think. Those got
This may be a meeting that I was shown absent, that I was actually present. I don't remember. I would have to look.
We vote on it, but we can't change it unless we vote on it again. I table it.
Okay. Wait,
He asks for it.
yeah. Let's table on this meeting, these meeting minutes. Commissioner Wilson is thinking he was actually at this meeting. So we want to go back and check the notes on that. So we'll hold up on this, sure. Let's move on to agenda item number 8 with the review of the special commission meeting on September 21st. Those minutes are also in your packet. Any edits or amendments? And double check the commissioners present, make sure you were there.
You were not in attendance, I do not believe, for the special committee meeting. You were not able to attend on the 21st.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, yes, okay. Right. Thank you.
Special, sorry about that. No, no problem. Is there a motion to approve the minutes for the September 21st special commission meeting?
Second.
Second.
Thank you.
Secretary Clement,
Yes.
Commissioner Aaron,
Yes.
Director Front. Abstain. Interim Commissioner Reed,
Abstain.
Commissioner Harrington,
Yes.
Director Holt.
Yes.
Commissioner Kurth, yes.
Commissioner Laird,
Yes.
Commissioner Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Judge Warren,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson.
Same.
All right. Motion passes. Thank you all. Next, we have from all the way in Scotland, is that correct? Okay, our OCCY Legislative Liaison, Ms. Brittany Hunt Jassy, will be presenting the OCCY proposed legislation. And I will say that we will be asking for approval on each specific piece of legislation, not the slate.
Hi
All right.
there.
Oh, thank you.
So I am actually in Ireland, but I am across the pond and happy to see you all. I know that you have in your packet a copy of our proposed legislative agenda, which includes essentially 4 items, one of which you've already discussed, which is the recommendation by State PARB to eliminate the right to request a jury trial. Additionally, we have 3 other items. So if it's okay, I'll just do a rundown, pausing for questions at the end of each item. Please stop me if there are any questions. So as you'll see on the item in your packet, the first bill is one regarding OCCY, our programs, one that would be a request bill by the agency itself. The first is what we're referring to as a general admin bill. A similar bill was run last year by Senator Paul Racino. It did not make it out of committee, and so was not really heard on the merits, but essentially this bill amends several sections within Title 10 in order to streamline our operations. The pertinent parts here, other than so a couple of these things, last year's bill included a couple extra provisions which are not included here because we've determined in the course of the year that they're no longer necessary in order to make agency operations more effective. So the specific statutory changes to Title 10 are those listed here on this document. The first is to strike the requirement which currently exists in Title 10 to include on the commission a member representing a community partnership board. This was part of last year's bill. There is no such person to be elected from a community partnership board. So we're just removing from statute something that does not exist. The recommendation made last year and what we are recommending again for inclusion in this bill is to add to the list of those members included in the commission a tribal member, specifically someone with ICWA experience. So the addition to this commission of a member who is both a member of a tribe and has a demonstrated level of experience with the Indian Child Welfare Act. The third item is to provide eligibility for a member who is appointed to fill a vacancy to serve 4 additional 2-year terms, essentially securing for that member the ability to serve on the commission for the same amount of terms as everyone else who is appointed at the start of their role. Fourth here is to authorize the commission to use available public or private funds to compensate members of the parent partnership board. What we are looking to do is to remove barriers to participation on the parent partnership board, which are financial in nature. So among what we specifically want to be able to do is to provide compensation to those parents who are on the board for their time, to reimburse them for childcare expenses. And then while we'll play with the wording on this if approved, to provide for necessary material and supplies, educational potentially, in order for them to carry out their duties and again, not be barred from participation because of their lack of financial means. And then finally, there's a provision which was included as well in last year's bill that limits the use of the Children's Endowment Fund to purposes outlined in the statute. Essentially, what this does is ensures that OCCY will exclusively be able to determine how the funds in the endowment, the monies in the endowment fund are used to really carry out the purposes that we have detailed in statute already. The note here says that it may be that you as members of the commission determine that it would be wise to run multiple administrative bills, potentially based on subject matter or the specific place in Title 10. I think that is a housekeeping matter essentially, but it's our recommendation that we run a bill again containing these changes, which again, were all part of last year's administrative bill. Are there any questions?
Yeah, Ms. Hunt, Jesse, have you had a chance to meet with the legislative committee or members of the commission engaging with you on a legislative committee?
I have not yet. I sent out an email to members who I believe were on the legislative committee before. There was just that was about 6 weeks ago. It's my understanding there hasn't been a meeting. And so I think what would happen is that once the commission makes a determination on these, the legislative committee would then get together and actually decide on the wording of these bills. But no.
Okay. Well, that can be a great plug for the legislative committee for anybody who's interested. I'd like to take these one at a time now and vote versus going through all of them and coming back. So do we have any questions or comments about the administrative bill as proposed? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
The judge, Commissioner Wilson. Any final discussion? All right, we'll take the vote.
Secretary Corbett,
Yes.
Commissioner Aaron,
Yes.
Director Front,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington,
Yes.
Director Holt,
Yes.
Commissioner Kurth,
Yes.
Commissioner Laird,
Yes.
District Attorney Mercy, or sorry, apologize. Commissioner Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Judge Warren,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
Motion passes. All right. Ms. Hunt Jassy?
So the second item on your list as an OCC, a bill regarding an OCCY program, it regards the state plan for services to children and youth. You'll be hearing a little bit later in today's meeting about, I think, about the state plan itself. Essentially, what we are looking at and recommending is that an amendment be made to the current statutory mandate regarding the state plan. The Oklahoma statutes in Title 10 currently require that OCCY create an annual state plan for children to services and youth. As those of you who have served on the commission for more than a year will know, that is not, we do not have the capacity to create such a state plan every year. And so it is the recommendation by our agency that the statute be amended to require the development of a state plan only every 3 to 5 years. It's the recommendation of OCCY and that that be 5 years, but I think that's really to the commission to consider, with a deadline of January 1st rather than July 1st. The idea being that it would be more efficient or productive, effective for the agency to create that state plan 6 months following the end of the fiscal year. So Office of Planning and Coordination, I know that Danielle Dill is in the room right now, and this she, you know, if anybody has any questions, I know she'd be happy to answer them. But essentially, we're looking to change this requirement to better match what we are doing and still ensure that we're doing a comprehensive job.
Thank you. Any questions? I do. The health departments, is it the child abuse prevention plan? Do they do that annually? Or is that also on a 3 or 5 year?
I honestly don't remember. I want,
Trying to remember. So there was another, I think that there were several that we were looking at extending the time out to.
Is that right?
And I can't remember if that was one of them or not. Yeah, I mean, it does create in addition to everything else, it creates a lot of administrative burden to reproduce these reports annually when there's just not much change from year to year.
Good to know that they're also in conversation.
It's also true that almost nothing you might recommend in a state plan could be accomplished within 1 year. And so in terms of looking forward and hoping to be effective, it might be more helpful.
I'll entertain a motion to approve. Thank you. Second, Commissioner Wilson. Final discussion.
Just a question, are we trying to give flexibility to negotiate 3 to 5 years, or do we need a specific time?
I would be open with to letting the legislative committee narrow in on that, and maybe by that time, the interim commissioner will have, we'll have an opportunity to align. Any other final discussion? All right.
Secretary Corbett?
Yes.
Commissioner Eric? Yes. Director Front? Yes. Commissioner Reese?
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington?
Yes.
Director Holt?
Yes.
Commissioner Kurth?
Yes.
Commissioner Laird?
Yes.
Commissioner Myers?
Yes.
Commissioner Snyder?
Yes.
Judge Warren?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thank you. Back to
Okay.
you.
Item 3 is under the section entitled Bills Relating to Children and Youth. This is another bill that ought to be or will be familiar to those of you who have been on the commission. It was previously run by Representative Ross Ford as HB 2742. This bill makes an amendment to the Motor Vehicles Act to require the use of a child passenger restraint system for child passengers who are between 8 and 12 years of age and under 4 feet 9 when older children would be required to be secured by a seatbelt. Essentially, this addresses a gap in the law that provides for creates a danger for children who are passengers. This, again, it was run last year. It's an example, great example of a bill that, while it has significant support, has not passed because it takes time. And so the recommendation by OCCY is that this this be part of our legislative agenda. Any questions?
Back again.
Was there a study done to kind of demonstrate the need for this? What's the basis for the request?
So I believe this bill was originally put forward by, is it AAA? There's significant support by some safety agencies. There was an interim study this year that addressed it as part of a list of things that are create a mortality risk for our kids, children and youth. I can't speak to, Director Jacoby may actually be able to tell you a little bit more than I can about some of the history here, but it has been, we have not run it, but we have previously supported it because it is, it's seen as a clear gap in the statute.
Do you know what?
Go ahead.
Do you know what some of the negatives were? The reason it hadn't passed in the last year, or
the best way that I can think of to explain this is that it was essentially left out, and it's seen as politically undesirable to put any limit on people who are transporting their kids. I don't know that it was a positive decision ever, like anyone ever made the formal decision to leave these kids out. I think it essentially was an oversight, which is, I think there's concern about being supportive of further limits on individuals who are making decisions in their cars.
Director Jacoby?
So we used to require backseat restraints for this age group in statute. When we modified it, it was an accident that this was removed. And that became, it is a gap, but we used to do it. We're the only state in the the only state in the United States that does not have this requirement. In any given year, the leading cause for child preventable deaths is either a car wreck or safe sleep. So it behooves us to do everything we can to keep kids safe in cars. And last year, a coalition ran this led by AAA. If you recall, you did vote on this as a recommendation by the Child Death Review Board. We're just asking to be the lead on it this year and move it forward. I don't know if it'll go anywhere. It's now seen as a parental rights issue. So I just think if we care about kids, we want to keep them safe in cars, then we should at least entertain the idea of requiring this in the backseat of a car.
My understanding is that it has overwhelming support in the House. In the Senate, there are some holdouts. I think it is something where we stand, particularly, I think if we take the lead, we can really ensure that this is part of the conversation about safety and health for our kids. It's just one element, but it's something that I think education on the matter will allow it to be part of. I'm hopeful about our ability to make movement there, whether it's passed this year or takes yet another year. It could certainly be in our 3 to 5 year plan, and I'm very hopeful.
I mean, I'm certainly for it, of course, but I'm kind of like Brittany, 3 to 5 might be good because we're going into an election year, and if it wasn't popular before, they're probably not going to go against what parental rights and whoever's trying to fight it. So, I think we should probably leave it in so that we have the tenacity to keep it forward. But, I just don't know how much traction we'll get for it in the next legislative session. That's my caveat.
Thank you. It's one of the leading cause of preventable deaths for children in Oklahoma.
In any given year, it's either safe sleep or car wrecks.
I think in whatever year, I think cautious optimism is probably the way to go. In whatever year we hope for it to pass, I'd rather not have to say we didn't support it last year for political
reasons.
reasons.
That's, to my point.
Exactly.
Any final discussion? Is there a motion to approve? Second? Dr. Kerr, any final discussion?
Secretary Corbett,
Yes.
Commissioner Eric,
Yes.
Director Brent,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington,
Yes.
Director Holt. Yes. Commissioner Kurth.
Yes.
Commissioner Laird,
Yes.
Commissioner Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Judge Warren,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you. Before we move on to jury trials, Director Jacoby wants to say a word.
So I just wanted it to be very clear, especially for those of you who are new to the commission. Since I've been here as director, we have chosen not to work on any legislation unless you, as commissioners, the majority of you agree that it's a piece of legislation we should put forward. And I've been very cautious about that for several reasons. And just to be transparent, part of it's selfish on my part, because if I get crosswise with you, then we're all kind of in a quandary, right? But also I think that the muster that can be shown by everyone coming together and saying this is important is really powerful, because this means your agency and your circle of influence is behind this. And I recognize that this issue in particular is controversial. And I just want to say that however this plays out, because I recognize some of you may have questions or concerns, which you should, because this is an unbelievably important issue. I just wanted you to know that we don't move forward if this commission doesn't want to move forward. And we are ready and willing to carry the water on this and take some heat, because I think that's what OCCY is for. We don't have a dog in the fight. We don't stand in the courtroom, but we try to do what's in the best interest of children. But I also do that at your direction, and this agency does it at your direction. So I just wanted to be super clear about that before we went. The other issues I don't think are that controversial or too worrisome, but this one is. And I just wanted you to know that we absolutely see that and honor that.
So the final item is the recommendation by State Parb that Oklahoma eliminate the right to request a jury trial on termination. For what it's worth, I echo the sentiments of Director Jacoby. I am formerly a children's attorney. I represented the agency through DHS for 4 years, and I served as a CASA director. That's my background. And so it's an issue I know very well. If it is determined by the commission that we want to carry forward, I can assure you only that I am prepared to, to educate on this issue. And frankly, I think privately we could argue either way. I'm a huge proponent of the protection of parental rights. On a personal level, I feel that there are better, more substantive ways to correct parental rights than the jury trial. I think that it is valuable when it is a meaningful right. And unfortunately, because of the capacity of our legal system, it is not always. And I think sometimes you find the jury that was described earlier that maybe feels sentimental and uneducated about the system and decides to terminate or not to terminate where perhaps a judge would not. I think there are also situations where a judge is better suited to make a determination on termination because the judge knows the limitations of those services that the parent had access to, and so may be able to actually offer more grace to a parent who is on trial for the termination of their rights. So I'm happy to facilitate additional conversation on this, but I just want to thank those of you who have already weighed in and assure you that as Director Jacoby said, we are prepared to move forward as directed by the commission, whether that is to support the amendment of statute on this issue or to hold off.
I think we had some great discussion earlier in the agenda. Is there any other discussion or comments about this?
Yeah, just a question. I was reviewing again on the delays for the backed up cases for Tulsa, Oklahoma County, and such. How far back? I mean, how far back did you are those years?
Judge Warren, did you hear the question?
No, I did not. I heard bits and pieces of it.
I believe the question's regarding page 6 of the report where it states how many cases are held over in Oklahoma County, Tulsa County, Cleveland County. The question from Commissioner Reed is how long have those cases been held back? Are we talking years?
I do not have that information at my fingertips. I would have to find out. I believe that we have talked about it on the committee, but I don't have it in front of me.
It's my understanding when I look at permanency data from DHS, what really pushes those permanency numbers back are adoptions. And when the cases move to the termination of parental rights, those are the ones that typically last longer, 2 years plus. When there is a reunification, that those numbers are typically lower than the adoption. That's anecdotal, but.
I think that's correct for exactly the same reasons that Commissioner Holt described earlier, which is that at the point in time, at which a termination petition is filed, that's when the demand for jury trial is made. And so it is at that point that they begin having really a logistical conversation about how to get it on the docket, especially in these larger counties. And so it's not uncommon to see a case is pushed, the next hearing date is 6 months out, and then 6 months again, which is a year and 2 hearings. And it quickly adds up.
And it may be in here and I've missed it, but how many cases, so this is based off of a request for it?
This report was requested.
Well, no, I'm talking about the option here is the parents can request a jury trial, right? So it's not automatic that it goes to jury trial.
That's correct.
What percentage of cases is that request made?
For a jury trial?
Sir.
I don't know. We have recommended as part of the report, we've recommended mediation, which has not been used a whole lot in the past, to kind of speed things up and perhaps get some type of permanency for the children without having to go to a trial, either to a judge or to a jury. What we tend to see is people that are not willing to correct the conditions, and they either have an abusive partner living in the house with them, or they've got drug usage that we try to help them get off of the drugs. And I have talked to the people in several cases about the fact that they were in the process of trading their children for the drugs. And they would shake their heads no, but yet they would continue to use them. And they would continue to cause the children to be neglected or abused as a result of that usage. And I've seen the case where we've gone up to the day of jury trial, and a partner traded the children for a boyfriend. So, you know, it's generally, we work very hard for a long period of time trying to help people get off the drugs, trying to help them understand that if the children are around this abusive partner, they're going to be abused. And when it fails, we don't jump into it. We're not moving as fast as we can go. We're willing to work with the people if we can see any progress. And what it boils down to, the judge makes the decision to terminate when there's been no progress.
To speak to the number of requests for jury trials, I know a lot of times the request will be made by the parent for a jury trial. And then like in rural counties, like our counties, Judge Warren, so they finally find a date, but we only have, 2 a year. And so it's set out another 6 months before the jury trial can happen. Well, then mom's sick. We can't do it. And so then it puts it off another 6 months if we're lucky. And then that's still delaying the child's permanency. Or they'll wait up till the day before and relinquish, or we'll get the jury and then they'll relinquish, or the jury trial starts and mom runs out of the jury, out of the courtroom, but we still have to continue with the jury trial without the parent there, which has happened. So
Earlier, can I give an example?
it's crazy.
Earlier this week, I continued a case at the request of the attorney for the parents and the state and the attorney for the children, because the parents had finally started working the plan. We were set for jury trial in 2 weeks, and they were seeing some progress. So, you know, we're not jumping at it. We're not jumping at the opportunity to terminate. We're looking at it, all else has failed. And the parents refuse to adopt changes in their lifestyle. and they expect the children to suffer that. And that's when we go ahead with the termination proceedings.
To echo Commissioner Warren's point, there is, I think that data would vary greatly from county to county based particularly on the capacity of the district attorney's office to actually conduct these trials and the dockets. One of the things I think is important is that the rate of termination, the actual percentage at which termination of parental rights occurs, there's very little difference between a jury trial and a bench trial. I suspect if we were able to pull that data, what you would see is that the huge difference there is in the length of time to permanency for the child. That's really where the data will differ, because in a bench trial and in a jury trial, because of what Judge Warren was just saying, termination rates hover at about 90%, because really the only cases that make it to termination are those where essentially nothing has happened in that case.
What we did discover is when the case finally does come up to trial, either to the judge or to a jury, the termination rates are about the same for both the judge and the jury. So, you know, there's situations where we decide that we shouldn't terminate, and then there are situations where we do.
Any final discussion? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Secretary Carter.
Abstain.
Commissioner Aaron.
Yes.
Director Front.
Yes.
Commissioner Reed.
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington.
Yes.
Director Holt. Abstain. Commissioner Kurth.
Yes.
Commissioner Laird. Abstain. Commissioner Myers.
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider.
Yes.
Judge Warren.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson.
Abstain.
All right, motion passes. Thank you all. Thank you, Ms. Hunt Jassy.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have one of our very own commissioners, Director Holt, with the Office of Juvenile Affairs to give a presentation on new youth detention laws.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. So this is something that OCCY, as commissioners, we have been looking at for 2 years now. In the state of Oklahoma, prior to November 1st, 2021, children that were accused of youthful offender crimes, so high-level crimes, 15, 16, 17-year-olds accused of robbery with a firearm, rape in the first degree, assault and battery with a deadly weapon, so high-level crimes. And then children accused of murder in the first degree, which in the state of Oklahoma, committed by 15, 16, 17-year-old is an automatic adult crime. Those children have been eligible to be held in adult jails prior to as they await trial and disposition and ultimate finalization of their case. If those adult jails were certified by the Department of Health Jail Inspection Unit to hold juveniles separate sight and sound from the adult population, which is also what they are required to do in DOC. It's part of federal law. The federal law, through the Juvenile Justice Delinquency and Prevention Act, has 4 core requirements that states are required to comply with and are required to report on annually. And then if we're successful in meeting those requirements, we receive federal funding that passes through our state advisory group, and that allows the state to work on prevention, delinquency prevention programs, and just help our state improve with those numbers. So the 4 core protections recognized by the Juvenile Justice Delinquency and Prevention Act are the deinstitutionalization of status offenders. So not detaining in juvenile detention or anywhere kids that have committed status offenses. So curfew, truancy, possession of tobacco. So crimes that one of the key things is that it's their age, they're under 18. So we don't want to detain those children. And we also look at racial and ethnic disparity numbers and look at what our representation of minority population is. Then the Juvenile Justice Delinquency Prevention Act also requires jail removal so that children under 18 are not housed in adult jails with adult inmates. And then if they are, the fourth requirement is that they're kept sight and sound separate. In 2018, the federal government, with overwhelming bipartisan support, reauthorized that Juvenile Justice Delinquency Prevention Act and put in some new provisions specifically around holding kids in jail, added some requirements and some things judges have to look at to hold any child in jail. So that was in 2018, and the provisions were to go into effect December of 2021. So Oklahoma has been working towards getting those into law. In 2019, the state of Oklahoma had a death in Oklahoma County adult jail of a 16-year-old being held there for accused of a youthful offender crime. After that death, under the leadership of Director Jacoby, the commission formed the Detaining Youth Task Force and had a coalition of interested parties and stakeholders that looked at what were best practices, what the state of Oklahoma should do around detaining youth in jails. And they ultimately issued a report and also looked forward at these new provisions coming into effect in 2021. Proposed legislation in 2020 to adopt those provisions of kids in jail. That did not go all the way through because it was a COVID year. That session was a little shortened to required years. This year, OCCY led the legislative agenda in House Bill 2311. Representative Lawson and then Senator Hayes moved it forward. It received 0 no votes in the House committee, House floor, Senate committee, and Senate floor. So overwhelming support, actually total support by the legislature. So what this bill does, and it went into effect November 1, is that juvenile detention is the initial placement for all children accused of crime. So murder in the first degree, youthful offender crimes, they go to a juvenile detention center first. If that child is accused of committing murder in the first degree, the district attorney can file a motion stating that they want that child moved to an adult jail. That adult jail still needs to be certified by the State Department of Health to hold that child safely, separate sight and sound from the adult population, and some other provisions as well. The 7 requirements that are required by the OJDP Act is that the judge looks at the age of the child, the physical and mental maturity of the child, the present mental state of the child, including whether the child presents an imminent risk of harm to the child, the nature and circumstances of the alleged offense, the child's history of prior delinquent acts, and the relative ability of the available adult and juvenile detention facilities to not only meet the specific needs of the child, but also to protect the safety of the public as well as other detained youth and any other relevant factors. Once that hearing is heard and the judge makes a ruling, which has to be reviewed every 30 days, and then there's a limit on 180 days for that child. So as of November 1, the state of Oklahoma, all children initially go to juvenile detention. If they're accused of murder 1, they can go to a jail if it's certified to hold them. And these provisions are met. The Department of Health, ahead of this November 1 change, sent letters and information to all certified jails at the time, letting them know that their certification would end on October 31st. And if they chose to recertify, these are the requirements. And as of today, there are no adult jails in the state of Oklahoma certified to hold youth. And I believe some jails are going to work on correcting some deficiencies and maybe look at being certified. So what does that mean for numbers? In the state of Oklahoma, the Office of Juvenile Affairs, through our Office of Public Integrity, certifies and licenses all juvenile detention beds in the state. So we have 351 detention beds that we certify. And that's, it's looking at, the square footage, the policies, the food, the education. It's a robust process. And they are looked at every year and recertified, I think, every 2 years. But we definitely are looking both announced and unannounced visits. And there are 13 juvenile detention centers across the state that have certified beds. The Office of Juvenile Affairs, our board creates the state plan for the establishment of the detention services. And we look at data and where kids are and where beds are needed. And OJA determines our board determines where we need beds, how many beds we want to contract in the state. The Office of Juvenile Affairs pays 85% of the rate for that bed, and then whatever county that kid is from, that county pays the county holding the kid in the detention center 15%. It's a little complicated. But so the pressure was, as we move these kids out of jails, especially youthful offenders, is there room in the juvenile, is there capacity in our juvenile detention system to hold these kids? And so today we have 351 licensed beds. The state of Oklahoma, the Office of Juvenile Affairs contracts for 229 of those beds. And as of this morning, we had 175 kids being securely held in juvenile detention. So there is room within the system, within both the contracted beds, and we can expand in the licensed beds to hold these kids. And the Commission on Detaining Youth Task Force really spoke to the difference between holding a child in adult jail and the trauma and probably not as superior care that they receive as if they were to be held in a juvenile detention center. Commissioner Myers is a detention operator. I will tell you from where I sit, the state of Oklahoma has excellent detention operators. I was just in Commissioner Myers Detention Center last month. They have excellent detention centers. It's a tough job. You've got really hard kids going through really hard times. But those people signed up to work with kids. They want to work with kids. They love kids, and they can keep them safe, provide them education, nutrition, support that they need. And they're able to access mental health services there as well. And so as an update, the state of Oklahoma will be compliant in that our law complies. We hope that judges and district attorneys and law enforcement and jail administrators comply and keep kids under 18 out of jail unless a judge has determined through hearing that that is appropriate. But within the system, we have capacity. We've shown we have capacity to absorb these kids. And so last week in the court improvement program, we had Didier Moncion, who's our compliance monitor from the Federal Juvenile Justice and Prevention Office in DC. And he said he was so really proud of Oklahoma that our law, House Bill 2311 that passed, directly mirrors the language required by federal law. And so he really praised Oklahoma for that. And so I presented this to my OJ board this week, and they asked that they have made a request and a resolution that the Office of Juvenile Affairs, if there is any lack of compliance, that we report that to the Juvenile Oversight Committee of OCCY. We did have one such incident, and through that grievance, we're able to correct it. So just want to give you an update that through the work of the Detaining Youth Task Force, OCCY's legislative agenda last year, that bill has gone through, and Oklahoma's currently in compliance and hopefully will remain in compliance. Great update. Happy to answer any questions.
How many kids did you move out of adult jails on November 1?
By November 14. So the DAs knew this was, they had known that this was coming. So they were going to hold hearings for murder ones that they wanted to hold, but then ultimately no jails wound up being certified at this time to hold them. So they have to move all of them. So I think that November 1 was a Monday. I think that Wednesday, Thursday, there were like 28 kids that we were looking at that we knew were moving. You'll remember Oklahoma County Jail was decertified in June, and then they had them in Pawnee. So there were 14 in Pawnee for murder one, but they got moved, I think that Sunday or Monday, to the juvenile detention center where they currently are.
Any questions or comments? Thank you for that report, Director Holt. All right, moving on to agenda item number 11, OCCY Parent Partnership Board. A couple of weeks ago, I had the privilege of participating in a portion of the orientation session for our new Parent Partnership Board members. Ms. Dill and Ms. Elder and the team at OCCY have assembled an outstanding group of parent partners, and you'll get a chance to hear from their introductions in just a moment. And so during this orientation, I wanted to make you all aware that we took a poll of what parent partner board members are interested in, and we'll be asking and setting up smaller group meetings based on interest, and we'll ask commissioners to participate in those meetings. So just want to make you aware of that based on their interest. We look forward to hearing from the Parent Partnership Board. It will remain on the agenda for each subsequent meeting moving forward and look forward to finding ways to partner with the board. So with that, I'll turn it over, I think, to Ms. Elder.
Yes, good morning. Thank you so much. We are so excited to officially announce the Parent Partnership Board. We have had such wonderful support from Commissioner Laird and Director Jacoby, the OCCY staff, especially the Office of Planning and Coordination. We have undergone a very intentional planning process. We've had technical assistance from the Children's Trust Fund Alliance. They provide TA for states across the country that are really trying to be intentional with including parents with lived experience. And I think OCCY is in such a great position to increase coordination across agencies and really looking upstream and early intervention. So with that, I want to my co-presenter today is Miss Betty Hawkins, and we will take turns introducing our 10 Parent Partnership Board coordinators. She will then give some takeaways from our November 3rd orientation. So just a few weeks ago, we had the orientation, as Commissioner Laird said, and then we will wrap up. So with that, we will start with our first parent partner, Miss Amber Adams. She is from Beggs, Oklahoma. She was on our planning committee this past year and has made an instrumental role in kind of the process. She has a great background in mental health. And so she had great input as we moved through the process. Her quote, as far as the hope for the OCCY Parent Partnership Board, is to increase family voice at all levels and improve the lives of Oklahoma families. We have Dr. Lana Turner Addison. Her hope is that we will work collaboratively for the benefit of all families with an equity mindset focused on strengthening families and improving overall outcomes for all children. And she is from Tulsa, Oklahoma. We have Miss Tamara Bryan from Pryor, Oklahoma, and her desire is for the OCCY Parent Partnership Board that we see great partnerships working together for the good of Oklahoma children and their families. And for the next three, I will turn it over to Miss Betty Hawkins.
Hello, everybody. For some of you, you already know me. For others, I am so happy to be here today. I have been in the past functioning as the parent liaison to the Oklahoma Commission on Children and Youth. And so you can see why I'm so excited about this endeavor to bring in the Parent Partnership Board. First, I'd like to thank Commissioner Lamb and Director Jacoby for their efforts and their guidance in helping us to plan this Parent Partnership Board. And with that, I'll just go ahead and introduce some of our board members. This is Shaquana Hildreth. She is from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Her hopes is that the Oklahoma City Commission on Children and Youth Parent Partnership Board and the families will change the families in Oklahoma for the better. I'm sorry. I am just kind of rambling on here like I always do. The next is Miss Sarah Jacoby. She is also from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. And her hopes is to make Oklahoma City better for families by listening to both those in leadership roles and us on the front lines to establish how she can help tackle the issues while strengthening communication between policymakers and parents. The next parent partner is Miss Sunny Jameson from Moore, Oklahoma. Her hopes is for the Oklahoma Commission on Children and Youth Parent Partnership Board is to help facilitate better collaboration between agencies that serve the families. I am so enthused and about the Oklahoma Commission on Children. I've learned so much from this organization and hope that our Parent Partnership Board in the future can help to strengthen what you guys already do. Thank you.
And I will introduce the next parent partner, Miss Delina Sullivan. She is from Pauls Valley, Oklahoma. And her hope is that the Parent Partnership Board is to help identify challenges that children and youth encounter daily in rural Oklahoma and work to find resources and solutions to ensure success for this underserved population. Miss LaShonda Stevens Toteme, she is from Moore, Oklahoma, and she had a great quote, I am different, not less, from Temple Grandin. And she says, may the OCCY Parent Partnership Board be a healthy, brave, fruitful space, providing rich soil for discussions and learning, a garden possessing rich, nutrient soil of thoughts, knowledge, partnerships, and Oklahoma family representation. The Parent Partnership Board be large and small enough for all desiring to support Oklahoma families. We also have Mr. Ike Turner. He is from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and his goal is to recognize the valuable role that fathers play in their children's lives and hopes to encourage more fathers to join the council and help elevate their voices throughout the state. And he loves that the road to success is commitment. And we have heard from Miss Betty Hawkins. And Miss Betty Hawkins, if you'd like to share your quote. Oh, Miss Betty, I think you're on mute.
Okay. My hopes for the Parent Partnership is that it benefits the communities of Oklahoma by creating a lively parent voice that will lead to the total health of the family unit. I really do believe that the family unit is the basis for everything that we work for in the commission.
And as we kind of wrap up, this, Miss Betty, are there any key takeaways that you'd like to share from the orientation?
One thing that I took away from the orientation is that each and every parent here is a leader. They already work in their communities and they already are responsible for advocacy, collaboration, teamwork, prospective, sharing and connecting and bridging gaps between politics and policies. And I just love the fact that we're gonna come together as a team with the Oklahoma Commission on Children and Youth, and excited the fact that some of the commissioners will be working hand in hand with us. It's just amazing.
Well, we thank all of you for your time. We did want to post the link. If you want to learn more about the Parent Partnership Board, it's on the new website. It is under the Planning and Coordination Department. And so we look forward to updating that as we continue to meet. The other thing that's exciting for 2022 is that the OCCY staff will be working with Commissioner Laird to facilitate meetings between the Parent Partnership Board members and the commissioner. So we look forward to talking with you and working together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Elder. Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. I think we have a great, outstanding, diverse group of parents who will be joining us on this journey and speaking into our work. So thank you. Agenda item number 12, we have Ms. Jill Geiger with Jill Geiger Consulting to update us on the state plan for children's services.
Morning, and thank you, Commissioner Laird, for that. I hope everyone is doing well. I unfortunately am not in Ireland. I am in Oklahoma City. Sorry. Quick update. Northern Lights, that's not real. Update on our efforts as we are working to develop the state plan for services to children and youth. I believe the last page of your packet has this update, and so I will not read it to you, but we are currently in the synthesis phase. And as you know, we did summer stops over the summer to gather some community perspectives, in addition to an online survey, as well as review of the other work that child serving agencies have done around the state. And we have seen 4 pretty overwhelmingly consistent themes. Those are listed at the bottom of your page. Prevention, infrastructure needs, and really in 3 parts: transportation, technology, and childcare, mental health supports, and workforce issues. And so you will not be surprised when you see the draft of the report to find recommendations in those 4 categories. We also reviewed the other, and Director Williams has alluded to yet another report that we'll add to this. We've reviewed 18 recent reports and see those same topics very consistently in those reports as well. So we think we're on the right path as far as seeing what's actually going on, what the needs are in the child serving agency system in Oklahoma. And we are optimistic that that there is much progress to be made in each of those 4. And I think at this point, that's really the update. We just wanted to let you know where we were with our work. Does anybody have any questions?
I'd be curious on the child workforce issues, particularly as we see kind of workforce issues generally across the state and opportunities. What do you sense there?
As far as what the issue is or what the solutions are?
Maybe what the issues are, but what do you sense are maybe the opportunities given where we are today in our workforce?
That's a great question. I don't know that I have a great answer to that second part. On the first part, I think, workforce issues across the state in every industry, maybe except for medical marijuana, right? I think that I think part of the issues are professionalism of the career. I think part of the issues are pay. I think part of the issues are it's tough, especially during COVID, especially during heightened physical dangers in a childcare environment and such an essential infrastructure, really, to keeping the rest of the economy going strong, right? I don't know what the right solution is yet. Open to input if anybody around that table has ideas.
I know there's been a lot of research in Oklahoma recently around hope, raising levels of hope. And from the youth that we serve that are specifically 18 to 21, we find that they're not real interested in working at all until they get a glimpse of hope. And if we can work with them over 3 to 6 months to see a little hope and really think, okay, I can do better than what I've been. I can be something different than what I've always been. When they find a little hope, that's when employability becomes a little more interesting. So I don't know, big picture scale wise what that looks for Oklahoma, but I'm interested in, this concept of raising hope and how that, correlates with employment.
Thank you for that comment. That's very helpful.
Hey, Ms. Geiger, I just want to throw out, when we were talking about infrastructure needs on employment, particularly around childcare, there were 2 things that I think we heard repeatedly. One was pay and the access to training so that they feel valued and like that they know how to perform their job. They're not just keepers to make sure a child is alive at the end of the day, but that they are enriching not only the child, but the family's life. So I think we heard that. But the other issue, which is related, but not exactly on point to employment, is lack of subsidy spots. And we saw that in Commissioner Kerr's area. I mean, I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure we talked about 4 infant subsidized spots in Weatherford, Oklahoma. 4. So if you're a single mother trying to go back to work, you're fighting over 4 slots if you don't have the funds. Am I wrong on that?
Well, I've opened 8 at the daycare.
Well, thank you.
So
And
there's
that's
now a grand total of
12.
But that includes all your students, single parents, foster parents, adoptive parents. That subsidy spot is I say huge because it's huge. I mean, we have 45 subsidy spots at Stepping Stone, but that's the only, and it's not just there. I just am in that,
Right.
but Clinton's the same way, just all those western areas. And then we struggle with placement of children in our counties. And a lot of that is because of childcare. You can't recruit foster parents if they can't go to work because they don't have childcare. So it's just that trickle down effect.
It was a huge issue. And I think as we're coming out of COVID and people are talking about and frustrated that not everyone's going back to work. Well, not everyone can because they can't find childcare. So whether you're a student or a foster parent or a biological parent, that is a huge struggle. And we heard that over and over. And I think in order to really pull in enough people who want to work in that industry, you have to make it worth their while. I think we also know that childcare runs on I don't even think it's a shoestring budget. I'm gonna call it a thread budget. I mean, there's so minimal profit in that. And it's just not right that the people that we claim we value and want to take care of and love and nurture, that the people we have to take care of them for part of the day, they're not compensated for that. So in a very fair and just way. So this was something we heard, and it's not new news to anybody, and it's not unique to Oklahoma, but it was so visible when we were out there talking to folks and their struggles, and whether it was the actual workers, whether it were parents. Childcare is a key player in us coming out of the pandemic. It was a problem before, it's a significant problem now. And I think that's why you're seeing things in this federal package that we're all kind of, watching. Universal pre-K is a piece to that. But what do you do until your child can hit universal pre-K? They can't go to universal pre-K when they're 6 weeks old, but you got to go back to work. So we've got gaps. So I just wanted to put in that plug. Sorry, Ms. Geiger, it was really, I thought it was a painful thing. Yeah, to watch.
Agree, and well articulated, ma'am. The only thing I would add to that was the plight of the person the new parent trying to go back to work in a non-traditional work environment.
Yes, I forgot
That's also
that.
problematic.
Yeah, the people working weekends and nights, particularly, I think when we were out in Custer County, there just wasn't.
Not an option. Any other questions or concerns about these?
So it's more of a comment. So I serve on the Governor's Council on Workforce and Economic Development. And I noticed on your sheet here that you had your other entities that you looked at the reports. There's 10 separate recommendations that are related to workforce. Obviously, childcare is a workforce development issue for the state of Oklahoma. And so what I would suggest right now, the Office of Workforce Development, because there's some core partners under the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, is updating their state plan, and it goes in the spring. So I would suggest that you connect with that to be able to put your state plan results to connect it back and forth so that we can get it into the workforce development plan. So that covers adult dislocated worker and youth programs. It covers career tech with their Carl Perkins program, vocational rehabilitation for our agency under rehab services, and Oklahoma Employment Security Commission, and serving the Oklahoma Works centers across the state. So if we can make that connection there and get it part of that plan as well, it would be a really nice transition piece. So I can get, you have my contact, you can reach out to me and I can help you get to the right people to connect there. Sound good?
That's an excellent suggestion. Thank you.
Any final questions or comments? Director Jacoby.
First, I want to just say thank you to OCCY staff because I'm telling you, there's been so much activity in the past few months. It's kind of mind-boggling because we have a very, very small staff and a lot of activity has really occurred. And the first thing you're going to see are a lot of personnel changes. Many of these are additional staff that we were allowed to bring on because of additional funding last year. So we're moving those people into place. We did have Jennifer Harden leave us, and I know you were all very familiar with Jennifer. Commissioner Front stole her away from us, Director Front. But we still see her, and we'll still partner with her, and we're very happy to have Ms. Hunt Jassy with us. But you can see all those folks listed there. I'm just going to go over a couple things because I know you can read my report. I'm going to give you an update on the database. We still don't have a signed contract. OMES and OU are still haggling. It looks like to be one, perhaps two issues, depending on how you frame it, but they're pretty major issues, and that's the ownership of intellectual property and the actual ownership of the structure, the database. OCCY will own the data, obviously. We have put forth a suggestion, and I think it's being considered, and I hope it will be accepted, and that's that they split ownership so that OU has the intellectual property rights, therefore they can take the knowledge and expertise that is in their brain and they can apply it to future projects that they may work on. However, OMES would own the actual database itself. So they basically, in my opinion, should split those two pieces. They haven't, I think, ever done that before, OMES in a contract, but that I believe is what we're hashing out now. And we're going to see if Mr. Moore will approve that. I believe he's the ultimate authority on that. So maybe someday we'll get off high center and actually be doing the work and not talking about the contract, but we feel like that is moving forward. And we really want to thank Mr. Matthew LaFawn at OMES. He was a new attorney that came on in June. And I have to say, he has constantly made sure this is on people's calendars and that we're meeting and we're talking, and it is moving forward. So that has been a huge, huge help. I will say that. I also want to just bring to your attention, because I want to just put that out there, that I've been appointed to the Archdiocese Review Board for, it's a tough subject matter. I'm going to get the title right, but yeah, the Charter for the Protection of Children and Young People Review Board. So this is basically, we provide advisory guidance to the Archbishop when priests, deacons, or any other religious have been accused of sexual or physical abuse of anyone within the parish or in their capacity as acting as a religious. So I will be taking annual leave. I think that it definitely informs my work here, but this will be, I don't want there to ever be any question about what capacity I'm playing. If you remember, I'm doing the same with Oklahoma Housing Authority. I've been appointed as a new commissioner there. I also think that work is tremendously helpful to the work here, but I am taking personal leave. So when I make a decision, I'm not representing the agency or you. I'm representing my own personal thoughts. So I just wanted to be super clear about that. And then last but not least, we have 3 openings on the commission. If you remember, District Attorney Marcy resigned to take another position on another board. We have yet to have Speaker McCall make an appointment. It's been well over a year for a parent with a child with special needs. He has multiple applications in. I don't know what the holdup is there. We ask fairly routinely, but I just want to tell you that that position I think is unbelievably important. And I just want to bring that to your attention. And last but not least, we will have a vacancy for community partnership boards because we do not currently have any community partnership boards. It is a requirement in statute, but we don't have any funding for that. And in addition, we think there are so many boards, task forces, and committees, we don't need them. We think if we're going to do community work, we can glom on to what's out there, be efficient and effective, and not reinvent the wheel. So that's going to be one of the things that we'll try to change in the coming future. But because we have no boards, we will not have that seat filled. According to the Attorney General's office, it would be inappropriate. That is a position we would like to switch into an ICWA expert. So I just wanted to let you know about that. And last but not least, our diversity, equity, inclusion work, we really are planning this. It's just kind of slow going because we've done so many kind of, I would say, other project things, but we need to keep this moving. So we are in talks with somebody to pull data for child well-being, particularly for kids of color, and have that information presented to you. It would be information that would be a broad swath. It's not just child welfare, it's not just juvenile justice. We'd like to pull in education, health, and look at the big picture. And then moving forward, really talk about systems issues. We've been doing some work here, and there's just, I think we all recognize that there's just a disproportionate number of kids represented in our services, typically for not positive aspects or positive outcomes. And we need to get a handle on, well, in my opinion, we need to stop trying to change people, but change the system so they can succeed. And there are obviously barriers that are keeping people from having those really happy, healthy environments to raise their kids. So we'll be looking at big picture and presenting that to you, and we're excited about that future work. And I think other than that, I'm happy to take any questions. Oh, website, thank you. Hey, I do want to draw your attention to the new website. Mr. Rob Agnew has dedicated countless hours and carved out time to revamp the website. Thank you for sending in bios and making that rich. People can contact you through the OCCY email, so you're not going to be bombarded in your 8 to 5 or in your personal capacity. But I really do think it's a friendlier version. Director Front, you'll be glad to know that it is accessible, and Mr. Agnew is going to future training to even learn how to make it more. So it is something we have focused on, because we all happily knew you would bring up the issue if we did not. So, and you should. So we're very pleased with the work, and because Mr. Agnew did so much of it, we got a huge cut in the rate that OMS charged us for the revamp. So just wanted to give him a shout out. Thanks for reminding me.
Yes, looks great. Does everybody have access to their OCCY email?
Yes and no.
Access. Ms. Jett, are you the appropriate person to give credentials? We just don't want people emailing into an email that's not being checked. So
Yeah.
I set a daily reminder or a weekly reminder on Fridays to jump in there and take a look. Okay. All right. I just want to thank all of the commissioners for your participation today and the healthy dialogue and conversation. And also a reminder, if you have any agenda items you would like to add to the agenda in future meetings, please let me know. The next meeting is Friday, January 21st at 9 a.m. And with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? Second? Oh, Director Front. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thanks for hanging in there.